Welcome to another edition of the Celtics Roundtable. I'm Jonathan Levy. I'm joined by Evan Valenti and Matthew Ignal. We are, of course, always powered by CLNS Media. We are going to get into the offseason and some offseason planning for the Celtics. We got the draft not too far away, but not just the draft. Free agency looms, and it looms pretty large for this Celtics team. Lots and lots of talk about Gordon Hayward reuniting with his college coach, Brad Stevens. Will it happen? It is an unknown as of right now. But the first place we're going to begin is talking about what happens, what do the Celtics do if Hayward indeed does stay in Utah, as he's very reasonably might choose to do. Like, that's not crazy at all. Matthew Ignal, what should the Celtics do if Hayward doesn't come?
You know, I was against something like this at first, but, you know, the more I think about it, making like sort of an upside play to try and get Blake Grifin, you know, at a max might make a lot of sense for the Celtics. As you've been saying, Levy, like, this team's window isn't so much over the next couple of years. It's more down the line. I mean, getting a guy like Blake Grifin, if he manages to stay healthy, he's been decently healthy during, you know, well, except for, you know, when he punched his friend or whatever. But, you know, he's been decently healthy throughout the regular season. He just has missed the last two postseasons, and his game is on the decline. But let's not forget, he's still really, really good. But if you get Blake Grifin and he, you know, is 90% as good as he was, you know, during those, you know, last couple healthy years in LA, then I think the Celtics ceiling gets raised a little bit. And, you know, if you can do that without trading any of the picks or the young guys, I don't think you're hurting your window down the road. Am I crazy here, or should we just not touch Blake Grifin?
Blake's tough, man. It's just tough because you see the player and you watch him. Like Simmons talks about this all the time about how, like, Blake Grifin a couple of years ago was the best, like the third best player in the playoffs, and that means a lot. But he hasn't been that guy. But, like, as a healthy guy, he fits the Celtics sort of perfectly, right? When they want to go small, he can play the 5 in a more traditional lineup where Al Horford's at the 5. You don't sacrifice a ton because Al Horford can still space the floor. Griffin moves the ball well for a 4. I mean, defensively it works a lot. Like, a lot of things work, but the problem is the health is such a major concern that investing a lot of capital in a guy like Blake Grifin is like playing with fire.
Okay, well, here's the thing.
And you don't.
There's no opportunity cost here either. The Celtics are going to be capped out anyway. So, right. I mean, I figure you might as well make an upside play instead of, you know, getting a safer option.
Yeah, but what if that buries you, though? That's the question.
They're going to be buried anyway.
And they're only buried for 4 years. And actually, like, with Markelle Fultz and Jaylen Brown and whoever the next 2018 pick is or whatever that turns into, if that's another young guy, those guys are still just going to be moving into their prime when you get out of the Blake Griffin contract, if indeed it goes that way. So there's that. To me, though, it's not like you're ever getting Blake Griffin at 90% of what he was. You're probably something like 35% of the time getting full-on, big-time Blake Griffin, and the other 65% of the time getting the more bastardized version we've seen the last few years, which, by the way, is still pretty darn good. He averaged 21.5 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, shot pretty well, hit threes, not amazingly, but shot okay from 3, made his free throws, got to the line a fair amount. I mean, he's a major addition even at his current self, let alone going back to what Evan's talking about, where he was amazing, you know, taking over for the injured Chris Paul in the playoffs.
In the era of rim protection a few years ago, he was more of a liability on defense than he is now in the era of switchability. He is a switchable defender. He can't protect the rim with his short arms. And, you know, he's lost a little bit of that athleticism, and that was never really his forte. He's pretty switchable. I think he's a really good fit with Al Horford. I mean, it's all about the playoffs, right? It's all about the playoffs. And if he's healthy in the playoffs, then the Celtics are going to reap the benefits of signing Blake Grifin. If he's not healthy, they're obviously going to regret it. Like I said, like, they're going to be capped out anyway. Why not make an upside play?
I mean, if Blake Griffin is the guy who he was, now this is a number of years ago, but if he can actually get back to that 24 points, 10 boards, a number of assists, can do everything you need him to do, high-flying, fully healthy guy, the Celtics go from being the team which, like, you know, yeah, we're part of that group which, you know, can win one game against Cleveland, to actually terrifying the Cleveland Cavaliers, and maybe are better than the Cleveland Cavaliers if Blake Griffin is full-on Blake. How likely is that? I don't know. But it's not impossible. Like, the rest of the team is good enough if you add a superstar. Got to tell you guys about HelloFresh, the meal kit delivery service that makes cooking more fun so you can focus on the whole experience, not just the final plate. Each week, HelloFresh creates delicious new recipes with step-by-step instructions designed to take around 30 minutes for everyone from novices to seasoned home cooks short on time. I've actually done this. The food is pretty darn good, I will tell you. They source the finest ingredients, measured to the exact quantities needed so there's no food waste, and employ 2 full-time registered dietitians on staff, that's 2, who review each recipe to ensure it's nutritionally balanced. Listeners of our show can get a very special offer. Use the promo code BEAT30, that's BEAT 30, like turn the beat around, for $30 off your first week of HelloFresh. Support the Celtics Roundtable and try HelloFresh for free. Simply visit HelloFresh.com and enter the promo code BEAT30.
But yeah, I mean, I'm looking through this free agent list on Hoops Hype, and, you know, Gallinari, yeah, he'd make the Celtics a good offensive team, but... And, you know, Paul Millsap's good. The deal looks, a little bit ugly.
That's going to be a lot of money.
Well, yeah, yeah, he and Blake Griffin, you know, it looks a little bit ugly at the end, like no matter what, even if things go well. The Dunked On guys talked about this, that the Celtics might look instead to renegotiate and extend one of Isaiah Thomas or Avery Bradley. And for me, I thought it was more compelling that they might do that with Isaiah Thomas. There's a bit of risk since we don't know how he's going to come back from this injury, and it would cost Isaiah Thomas a little bit of money in the long run, but at the same time, he'd get much richer, much faster under a renegotiation and extension deal. And if he did that at the max or near the max, then they would only have to pay him for 3 years after this upcoming year instead of an additional 4 years. And that 4th year is where, you know, his next contract might be a real albatross. If you can only get him, you know, if the Celtics only have to pay him for an additional 3 years after his contract expires, I think that's appealing, and I think I'd be more open to keeping Isaiah Thomas around in that case. That might even sound a little bit better than getting one of these, you know, free agents. I mean, Isaiah Thomas is really good. He's better than most of the guys that we've mentioned.
He is. He just, you know, we got a very crowded backcourt, and it's only going to get more crowded. You know, Markelle Fultz is coming, and he's going to demand a lot of that playing time just by virtue of his skill set and talent level. And I know they say we can both play at the same time, but can they? I don't know if they can. Right now, that's an incredibly brutal defensive team from the backcourt. Maybe Markelle Fultz will get good defensively, but he's nowhere close to that.
I mean, wouldn't you love to have like 48 minutes of Markelle Fultz and Isaiah Thomas running pick and roll? I don't know how that would work if they'd be starting together, or Isaiah Thomas would be coming off the bench, or Markelle Fultz would be coming off the bench for a couple of years. Both guys are going to get starters minutes. I'm not concerned about that. There's enough minutes to go around to get starters minutes. Whether they're actually starting or not is a different question. But, you know, you can't overvalue, you know, having more than competent pick and roll players, multiple guys like that. I mean, that's gonna power a consistently great offense.
I think this is a really interesting possibility if they strike out on Griffin and on Hayward. Does that increase the chance of maybe them trading somebody away and making a run, or does it make them think about more of packing it in, saying, okay, if we can't get a marquee free agent right now, do we just go with Levy's plan and try to contend years from now, like in that 2022, 2025 range, where you'll have Markelle and Jaylen Brown and supposedly the 2018 pick they have from the Nets all come into their primes. If you don't get Griffin, you don't get Hayward, what do you do? There's really no, because you're not trading away the number 1 overall pick. As much as people want to, let's go get Paul George and let's go get Jimmy Butler. No, stop it. Be quiet. Because the reason why you don't, because it brings on that salary you don't want. It creates that problem again, and you have to give up the number 1 overall pick, which you again waited to get your entire franchise's history to get. So you stick with Markelle, you stick with Jaylen Brown. I think I might be more inclined, this might sound crazy, to trade Isaiah Thomas if I don't get Gordon Hayward and if I don't get Blake Griffin, because what does Isaiah then get you? He gets you a $30 million contract in 2018 where, I mean, there's nobody else really that you want.
Alex Kungu on our Tuesday pod, actually, he too questioned the long-term pairing of Isaiah Thomas and Fultz after saying that they could really work well and mesh well together offensively. And I think that's why the Celtics, most likely think is that they're just kind of going to see how the pairing of Isaiah Thomas and Markelle Fultz works, and kind of see what they have in Fultz and see how ready he is. He could be ready year one. There are point guards who have been ready year one. Like I said, Kyrie Irving was ready year one. John Wall was ready year one. Chris Paul was ready year one. If Markelle Fultz is that good, he might be ready to run a team in year one and run it well by year 2 or year 3. So it'll definitely be interesting. But I think the Celtics' best move, instead of making a rash decision like trading IT, the only guy who can really hit the paint right now with the ball in his hands, I think their better move is just to sort of wait and see what they have. Do we have any more points on this, or do we want to move up to the Detroit rumor?
Well, let me just ask one quick question. So this all started with our talking about Hayward. And if he doesn't come, what chances do you think Hayward is going to come or not? How likely do you guys think this is, based on the tea leaves?
That 40% sounded okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Could be even more than that, but I'll go with 40. Not to sound like an
The Celtics can offer him a 3+1 deal, right? So while they can't offer him as much money as Utah, they could offer him 3 years. He's then eligible. He can then opt out for the 4th year. He'd then get a 10-year max, presumably from the Celtics or some other team, I guess. I think the numbers would be pretty close. So I don't think Utah necessarily has too much of a dollar incentive over him. And the Celtics have a brighter future. Like, I say 40%. That might even be, conservative. I think the Celtics' chances were really improved by getting that number 1 pick, by getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe by winning 1 game. Perhaps in that order. But I think he's a real threat to leave Utah.
I think I think it was the Bill Simmons podcast, they were talking about this, and Simmons said that his 2 best friends on the team are Joe Ignal and George Hill, and both those guys are free agents.
Right.
And so that also may be sort of like something we...
That's weird.
Yeah, like if they both actually leave, then I don't know if Utah can keep all of them. I don't think. So that may be another reason that makes it less attractive for Hayward to stick around in Utah. Also, there's not a whole lot to do.
They also screwed up the restricted free agency process. They're like, oh yeah, go out there and see what you can get. Like, we don't know if we really want you or not. And then they went out and got an offer from Cleveland and Charlotte. Optimistically for the Celtics, it looks like a decent shot. You're going to get a meeting with them. And having Brad Stevens at that meeting is going to be huge. Having Danny at that meeting is going to be big. Having Isaiah at that meeting is going to be a big thing. Al Horford will be at that meeting.
The pitch is going to be great.
Yeah, I think their pitch will be better. It's going to be up to Hayward to say, do I leave this city where I've grown up?
All right, quickly, but before we sign off here, rumor: Detroit is looking to trade its number 12 pick to get a veteran. How do you guys feel about this? What would it take to pry that number 12 pick away from Detroit? Who might you be looking to target? What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I'm unenthused by this. I mean, what kind of players are going to be there at 12? Maybe Collins will be there. Maybe Laurie will be there. Those guys are all right. But we got Zizic coming in anyway, right? I'm looking at the free agent market here as much as anything. I don't think those guys are going to help this year anyway, and I don't know that anyone who the Celtics would be giving up is going to be much more valuable. I don't think the Pistons are going to take Marcus Smart for the 12th pick.
No.
I think it's guys like Avery Bradley and Jay Crowder is what they'd be looking for, and that feels like so much value to be giving up for not a whole lot, unless you're clearing cap space.
They have KCP, so I don't think they want.
KCP's a free agent.
Yeah, but they're gonna match whatever offer he gets.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and so I don't think Avery Bradley. I think Jay Crowder could be a guy they might be interested. You could always use more wings. Every NBA team is looking for those small forwards, and Jay Crowder's got 3 more years. I don't know if that really gets you up to number 12. Getting a guy on a rookie deal might be a little bit better, and there's probably some upside there. To me, this draft is 10 deep. Doubt Lowry Markkanen falls to 12.
There are guys with a ton of potential. Anunoby is a guy that just you look at him and you're like, wow. If that guy figures out how to shoot, then forget about it. That guy's going to be awesome.
Well, he can't dribble or pass either. He's a terrible offense.
He can't do anything.
He can dunk it, though.
He's got that wicked, ridiculous wingspan.
To me, the really interesting part of this story is that Stan Van Gundy wants to do this. Why would you want to trade the number 12 pick to get slightly better in Detroit. Right. That doesn't get you anywhere except maybe like the 8th seed or the 7th seed in the playoffs for the next few years. What's the point of that? I guess if you're worried about getting fired, there's a point. But this is exactly the kind of situation Ainge normally likes to take advantage of, right? It's the Billy King, a mini Billy King type spot. I don't know if the Celtics can do anything with this because the 12th pick, as we're saying, doesn't seem to do a lot. But Stan Van, I think, is in some trouble. All right, that's going to do it here for Celtics Roundtable. For Evan Valenti and Matthew Ignal, I'm Jonathan Levy. Make sure you check us out on Twitter. We are at CLNS Roundtable. Of course, give the Celtics newsfeed a 5-star review on iTunes. It totally helps us out. And we will see you next time on the show.